It's July the 28th. I'm here on what we call our main yard, where we raise all the queens that we sell as mated queens. We have quite a lot of these 12 colony groups placed all over this area. And at this time of year, we're finished with our honey harvest, and we're tidying up our hives for the winter, doing a little feeding, and making these splits above double screen boards to overwinter. And a lot of people think that it's too late in the year to make splits, but we do a lot of these every year, and they work out really good. Matter of fact, these late fall splits like this are always our biggest producers, our biggest honey producers the following spring. Those queens are the prime age for laying, about 5-6 months old, maybe 7 months old, as the honey flow rolls around the next spring. And that's the prime age for queens to produce. And they haven't really ramped up to peak prior to that, and your queens that are started earlier in the prior year, you know, are reaching a year old or maybe a little less. And once they get close to that year old, they start to fall back a little bit on laying. So these queens that we raise in the fall are really in prime condition starting the next spring during the honey flow. The way we do, we pull honey the beginning of July, 1st of July, and we can come back right then, starting then, and start making these splits above a double screen board. And what we do, we start out in spring we overwinter in single deep colonies. And come early spring, when the bees start to brood up, we'll put a second deep box right on top of that single bottom box. And it gives that queen room to expand. She'll come up in that top box and start to lay. And just gives her a lot more room to grow as she starts to really build that brood nest out in the early springtime. And as the spring rolls on, we'll pull a split or two out of these colonies. And when the honey flow rolls around, after it gets started good, we will pull this top box off. We'll shake all the bees down into that bottom box, place an excluder over the bottom box, place this top box right back on top of the excluder. And that allows all the brood in that top box to emerge out. And as they emerge out, the bees will backfill that brood nest on top where the brood was. They'll backfill it with honey, and this will become our first honey super. And a lot of the reason for that is to help with swarming. As that queen starts to really grow a brood nest, it gives them a lot more room, helps with swarming. But once the honey flow starts, they back off on that a lot, and you can allow that queen to be pushed back down into one single box. And so after we pull our honey and extract our honey, this of course is our first honey super. It's pulled off and extracted out, full of drawn comb. At that point, we place it right back on top of the excluder. Leave the excluder in place, place it right back on top of that excluder. To stop the queen from coming up, we leave the excluder in place, and that allows the bees to clean off those frames pretty good and keeps them in good shape, keeps us from having to store them. But also, we're starting immediately as we pull honey that day, or within the next week or 2 weeks, we're coming back and pulling a split from this bottom box up into the top box. And the way we do that, we'll take 2 or 3 frames of brood and pull up into the top box, put that comb from the top box into the bottom box, and just come in and place a queen cell in them. And that gives you a good amount of time before it gets too late in the fall to get all these queen right. We started feeding immediately, and we'll put in the bottom box, we will put a 1.5 gallon Man Lake cap and ladder feeder up on one side of the hive. And we like to put them on these pallets. Always put the cap and ladder feeder in the bottom box on the inside. That way when you get ready to feed, you just slide this top box away from the other hive. You don't have to pull it off. You just slide it back enough to get to that cap and ladder feeder, fill it up and slide it right back. Keeps you from having disassemble the hive to feed them. On these top boxes, we have 50mm holes drilled in the tops. You can buy these plugs. I get them from Better Bee to keep the hive plugged. You just pull those plugs out and set a 1-gallon bucket right on top of that, and that's how we feed the top box. So that works out pretty good. We'll start immediately feeding right when we pull honey and make these splits. And kind of have to play it by ear. You don't have to continually feed through the whole time if they're not needing it. But it does help a lot with the growth and filling out these boxes if you do keep some light syrup on, especially once goldenrod hits. Different places have a good goldenrod flow, some places don't, but it never hurts to keep that light syrup on even through the goldenrod, having an abundance of pollen coming in, and it really makes a good healthy hive. So we do like to feed all the way through goldenrod, and sometimes we'll even open feed if they're in good shape. After we make those splits and have a decent amount of food, we'll just do a little bit of open feeding just to keep them going a little bit, keep them in good shape. But mainly we come in here in Alabama, we can feed pretty well through November. So we come in during October is the way we do it, and really assess the hives and check for weight and stores, and if needed we will put buckets on top, or fill up Captain Ladder feeders and feed a heavy syrup, 2-to-1 syrup, 1 or 2 rounds, 3 rounds, whatever those hives need to get them in really good shape for spring. But like I said, these are our biggest honey producers next year. They will really get after it come springtime. When springtime rolls around, you have a lot of options of what you can do with it. We sell overwinter nucs, and this is where we will sell them from. You got 10 frames in this hive. It's a little easier to make your split out of it rather than having a 5-frame nuc. You can go in when you get ready to sell this nuc, or when you get ready to harvest a nuc out of there. You just come in and pull your 5 best frames out. You don't have to settle for what's in this hive. You can go in here and pull the best 5 frames you got, put it directly into your split, and have a really good nuc to sell immediately. We also will take these off. If we have a dead spot here and there, we'll take these off and just set them right on another empty pallet spot to fill in our dead outs. But that's the basics of it. We start it the 1st of July, right when we pull honey, and that's such a great time because there's a ton of bees in these hives. So with that queen excluder, this box is already going to be full of bees also. So you have a big population in your new split. And once you put that double screen board on, they're separated, and most of those bees will stay here. So it really takes advantage of that huge population of bees going from all those supers that we had stacked up, going down in that back down into the smaller amount of boxes. It just really takes advantage of those big populations, and it makes a really good split. But we start there in July, and 3 weeks later we'll make our rounds back through and check for queen right colonies. And the ones that are not queen right typically still have a great population of bees. We just put a new queen cell in and give it another 3 weeks. If not, we'll go back in, pull another brood frame or 2 back up into the top, maybe give a shake or 2 of bees. But it makes it really easy to keep your split populated in good shape until they are queen right and you have a good laying queen building that hive back up. So it gives you still have plenty of time to get them all queen right before it is too late in the year. Here in Alabama, we have goldenrod beginning of September and goes pretty much through the month of September. I like to have them queen right and have a queen in there building her nest before that goldenrod flow. That gives you the best time to take advantage of that goldenrod flow, because that's during that month of September is when they will really build and make a really good nest for overwinter. So yeah, that gives you plenty of time to get them queen right before then. If not, if you still have trouble with some of them getting queen right, all you got to do is just pull the excluder, leave them as a double deep, or shake them all into the bottom box and store the combs from the top, however you prefer to do it. But it's a good thing to try. It's not too late in the year to split, and I think you'll be really impressed with the production that you'll see out of a colony split at this time of year when next spring rolls around. Alright, this is how we make our fall splits. We done got a second box split on all the hives out here, so I got a single here. This is a split that I made on a dead out spot about 5 or 6 weeks ago. I'm gonna just set a second box on it, but it'd be the same way as what we do with a box already on it. Just have the queen excluded. We swap out for a double screen board. So I'm just gonna pull a split from the bottom, put down a double screen board, and put a new box on top. Be the same concept. I'm gonna go through here and get in the brood nest and find 2 frames of brood, or 3, depending on how much brood's in here, and just move it up into this other box. I done took a couple of frames out of this box. Got 8 drawn combs in there. There's some emerging brood that's already backfilled with eggs and larvae all through the middle there. Let's see the queen on this frame. We'll move that over in the middle of these frames. Bunch of young larvae. I'm trying to get some more cap brood. Bunch of pollen on that one. Bunch of pollen there. I'll just use this one. This one looks good. A lot of brood on that, a lot of pollen. That'll be good. Be a pretty good bit of brood, two pretty full sheets of cap brood. That's be 3 or 4 frames of bees when they emerge. Try to find a good frame of open larvae. Shake the bees off of it. Not a lot of bees in this split. I just made it 5 or 6 weeks ago, but plenty enough to take some out of. Slide these all over. That 1, 2, 3, 9. We'll pull 1 frame back out. Feeder in the bottom, on the inside. So that's got the queen in this box. Double screen board, and put our split right on top of that. It's got about 2 frames of bees in there right now. That's good enough. If it was a good full box of bees on the bottom, I'd put more than that. So this is a little less than I like to start with, but I'd rather have 3 frames or 4 frames of bees in it, but this will work. Only thing you got to worry about is plenty of bees in there to grow a big enough colony for the winter. I like to have more bees simply because of robbing this time of year, but they'll usually be fine. Queen cell and a cell protector. there in the middle. Put a cover back on. Simple as that. This top box did have I had a few frames of food. I put a couple of frames of food in the top of that, so that's all they need. That's just quick as that. And that'll be a great honey producing colony come springtime. So these are a couple of options for double screen boards. We purchase ours because we just don't have time to build them. We buy ours from Honey Run Apiaries. That's the best deal that I found. They're just a framed out board. It's just a frame with fully screened top and bottom. You can buy them other ways. This one here, we got a few of these that we've bought that just have more options, a little more versatile. You can use these for bottom boards on a queen castle for multiple openings to separate different hives off, or different just a little more use out of these. But they're more expensive. I prefer to buy these cheaper ones. They're well made and I like them. I've seen people build them all kinds of ways. The purpose of this double screen board is it's got a layer between, so it separates the two hives where they can't touch. Bottom hive can't reach the top hive. They can't touch between these screens. There's a gap, about a 1-inch gap between these two layers of screen. I've seen people make them. You can take a piece of 3/4 inch plywood and just make a cover, just like you're going to make a cover on a hive. You don't have to have any ledges. Just a sheet to fit the hive box, and take just a hole in the middle or 2 holes, one on each side. Put a layer of screen over both holes on each side of the board, and that creates an opening between the hive, but they're not able to reach one another. And the whole purpose behind it is taking these younger splits that is not going to be as well populated as the mother colony on bottom, and it helps to control heat during the winter time. It gives them a little more heat. They consume that heat off the bottom hive as it flows up into that smaller colony on top, and helps keep them warmer and keeps them alive better. They thrive much better through the winter time. You can raise a very small colony through the winter time above these double screen boards when you place them on top of a strong colony on bottom. And this is one of the double screen colonies we made 3 weeks ago. We're going to go in here and check it for queen rot and see what kind of shape they're in. There's our queen cell we dropped in. By now, she should be mated and back in here laying. And I can tell already she's going to be in here. All the bees are concentrated right here on these 3 or 4 frames right in the middle. So I can just about go ahead and tell you she's going to be laying on those frames right there. Good bit of nectar there, capped honey. It's good to see. This colony here was made 3 weeks ago with probably 3 frames of brood. We didn't shake any bees in these at that time, but we had just split our colonies, and there was a good many bees already in the top box. There's our new queen right there. Here she is right here. And she is laying pretty good. We'll pull her out right quick and mark her. She's got one side laid up really good. Not much light. Can't see very well. Got a lot of pollen there. Not much, but she's got about one frame laid up already. That's pretty good. These Russian queens are a little bit later getting mated and started laying. So at 3 weeks, a frame of brood is pretty good. Yeah, looks good. So that colony is in pretty good shape. We've got, shoot, there's 1 frame, 2 frames, 3 frames. There's about 4.5, 5 frames of brood. I mean, of bees, not brood, but of bees in this colony. That colony is in really good shape. We're only at the end of July, so we're still a month away from the goldenrod flow. When we hit the goldenrod flows, when they really ramp up, and for that month through goldenrod, they really build the nest out good, get a great population of bees, draw some frames out. Starting with these boxes that we extract the honey from, it gives us pretty much usually 10 frames already drawn out in them. So that's a big help to manage your colonies that way. That really pushes them forward to not have to draw those extra frames out. All they've got to do now is lay and gather nectar and pollen. So that really pushes them forward and cuts out a lot of time to grow these colonies out. So with 5 frames of brood, even if they had 3 frames of brood, I'm completely happy with them, because over the next 2 months, by the time we reach the end of September, 3 frames of brood, that's going to be probably 7 or 8 frames of brood by the time we reach the end of September into the goldenrod flow. And that's a great, the colony will be in great shape to overwinter, and they'll have plenty of honey stores in there, and then, man, they will be busting this box open in February. So I'm really proud of a colony in this shape right now at this time of year. While I've got these colonies open, I like to go ahead and just pop this top box off and go into just take a peek in the bottom and make sure they still look good, make sure nothing's happened with the queen. I just jump to the middle of it right quick and pull out a frame, check for brood. If I see some larvae in there, that's good enough for me. I'll close it up and move on. I always check for your queen on the bottom of these double screen boards before you set them off somewhere, 'cause sometimes she'll be on there. That's there we go. There's some cap brood emerging out, brand new eggs and very young larvae backfilled in those holes. So she's in there, good enough for me. One thing about these 1.5 gallon calf and ladder feeders, this is the feeder from Man Lake that we prefer to use. Those calf and ladders really help with drowning of bees. You don't have very much of it at all. The 1.5 gallon is what we prefer. It takes the place of 2 frames. They also make a 1 gallon and a 2 gallon. The 1 gallon can take the place of 1 frame, but it's really a tight fit across the box. They don't fit real well. I don't like those. The 2 gallon is just don't fit well either. I don't like the fit of either one of them. But the 1.5 gallon takes the place of 2 frames, leaves you with 8 frames in the box. It's a good number of frames, plenty enough to overwinter a good strong colony, and fit really well. Gives you your correct spacing on the outside of the 1st and 10th frame, or 1st and 8th frame, and I just like them a lot better. They work out really good for us.